It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, January 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that could not tell you, Russ, what goaltender interference is.
I mean, I couldn't tell you at the beginning of the year anyhow. I really can't tell you now.
All right, we're going to get into that USA Canada game. We're going to talk Carter Hart, preview the Yotes game, and talk about Leo Carlsson, all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, once again, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with prospect expert Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll keep up to date with our episodes and Flyers news. You can email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Russ, so we got the official announcement from the Flyers that Carter Hart was off IR and is active. It's interesting because he
So
wasn't
why was he on the
officially.
trip?
Well, we know why he was on the trip because they anticipated that he was going to play. And Tortorella said as much, that he wanted to put him on those two later games in California. But I think the question is if he was truly ready to play in that last game against the Ducks, and it was a coach's decision to not have him play, like, why wouldn't they have just had him back up in that
I
game
mean,
for Urson?
I still have a couple questions. The reason I asked why was he on the trip, because he was still in protocol and they could have had him fly out after they knew he wasn't going to play the first game. So, okay, they didn't do that. Then, so what you're suggesting to me is now they delayed activating him off the IR, is what you're suggesting.
Well, I don't know, because if Tortorella said he was ready to go the day of the Ducks game, but they didn't officially take him off IR, I don't know why that is, unless it's like a or cap situation
It
thing.
could have been. It could have been a cap situation. Could it be bad communication again? It could be.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't
it's
know.
something that just doesn't. I'll say it like this: it didn't line up.
No. And that's again where my concern is. It's just that there seems to be different things being said by different people at different times. And, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. It's just like when you
No.
add this to the pile of other things,
Yeah, yeah.
it makes you concerned. That's all. But that being said, I would suspect they're going to play him against the Yotes just because,
You have to.
again, you just got to get him going right away. If he's ready, you got to put him in.
It doesn't matter how Urson did his last game. You have to play him.
Yeah. And, as far as the Coyotes go, we saw them December 11th, where Arizona won 5-4 in overtime. That was a rough game, man.
Yeah, I kind of remember. I don't think the Flyers touched the puck in overtime, if that was the one that
Yeah, it
they.
was pretty brutal.
Yeah,
It was a terribly managed overtime.
yeah. So they're a little better in overtime now if they get there. Um, we'll say it like that. Yeah, I mean, look, this is one where Chikrin's going to be on display again, so he's going to be trying very hard to get on that scoreboard and get himself out of Arizona. Keller always does well against the Flyers. I mean, he did well last game. It's not going to be a pushover. Vidmelka is a good goalie. This will be an interesting game. I mean, this is one where even Arizona is really doing better than we all thought this year. And so they're, right now they're on the same level as the Flyers. Like, I can't say that they're worse, and I can't say the Flyers are better. I think they're kind of at the same level.
Yeah, I would say that. And, they did lose to Florida in their last game. They've lost 3 in a row. So to Florida,
Mhm.
Tampa, and the Leafs, Florida aside with what's going on there, they're kind of a mixed bag right now. At least Tampa and the Leafs are very, very good teams, but they won against the Avs and the Kings, and that's like their last 5. They're 5-5-1 in their last 10. They're in the same spot as the Flyers are in the Central Division in 7th.
Mhm.
They have pretty much the same amount of points since
Mhm.
their last meeting. The Yotes have 9, Flyers have 10. So it is pretty much a level playing field.
Yeah, I think so. It's like that Mortal Kombat when you used to play, and if you were playing the same character, they'd be shaded a little, but it's the same character. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, obviously we like to see Shane Gostisbehere come for a visit. So always nice to have him, but it's not going to be nice,
Not if he's
it's
scoring,
what
right?
I know. And especially on the power play,
Right.
they don't, the Yotes top power play unit is not terrible. They've
No.
got Chikrin on it. They've got Ghost, Nick Schmaltz, Nick Ritchie. I mean,
It's a pretty good power play.
yeah, yeah. So I think that, Flyers got to stay out of the box. They can't like take this one for granted because
Not everybody's gonna
Arizona,
go 0 for 5, right?
yes. And, Arizona certainly does have offensive weapons that could be productive on the power play for them. So I think that's not going to be a thing you want the Flyers to see again, even with that quality PK that they have.
Yeah, I think this is one where, um, if the Flyers want to play physical, fine. But they have Lawson Krause. They have some guys that could really mix it up there too. So don't think that that's gonna, win you the game. But yeah, don't go overboard with that. I'd still like to see them possess the puck a little more because even in some of these other games, they're sort of getting these quick strike goals at times, but sometimes they're not carrying the play. I'd like to see if they could carry the play against the Coyotes.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the key, right? And, I think about the Flyers and, of course, I have that Canada-USA game in the back of my head, which we'll get to in the next,
You had to
segment,
mention it.
but, if you look at defensive structure, I think this is just gonna be one of those games where the Flyers can't let up. Even if they think it's gonna be, smooth sailing, they have to keep that defensive structure in place, or those guys that can score on Arizona are gonna take advantage of it.
I mean, it's 90s night. Chris Terrian's not gonna go in there and
Oh
save him.
god. It is 90s night, I forgot about that. That's a fun era to celebrate, though, so at least it'll be entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun until Darren McCarty, but I get it.
Oh, no. Yeah, I was at at that Stanley Cup final. It's both games in Philly. It was not fun.
No, the left wing lock. That was bad.
It was very bad. But, the 2023 Flyers, I think, they've been on a roll, obviously, winning 3 in a row, and so I think that, hopefully they can carry it forward
Hmm.
and, play with the sense of attack that they've had over the last few games. I think that'll help them against Arizona specifically. I think, Arizona can't withstand sustained pressure. I think that's their problem.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and and that goes with my carrying the play. Let's see him get second and third shots. Let's see them control the puck in the offensive zone a little longer. Let's see those things. That would be great.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Well, we'll see how this one goes against Arizona. I'm hoping for a fourth win in a row. I think having again some of those younger guys get on the scoreboard would be a good thing in a game like this.
Yeah, no question. If like Frost can continue and Tippett can continue, it's only going to help them.
Exactly. All right. Well, we are going to get to the World Junior Semifinals coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer, esports, and of course the NHL. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like ours, they've got those as well at Bet Online. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. Make sure you check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft, plus NHL draft rankings, top prospects comparisons for every team. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Russ, I'm still kind of sad about the results of USA versus Canada in the semifinals of World Juniors. Canada, of course, winning this one 6-2. I think we said it was going to be like 5-3 or 5-4.
5-4, I thought Canada, yeah.
Uh,
It could
so
have been that. I
if
mean,
we knew what goaltender interference
and a
was.
few other things, yeah.
Yes, of course. I don't want to whine about the goaltender interference thing. I think that, the first one that was called back, there's something to it there.
Yes,
I
there is a
think,
little bit of contact, so I did not get mad at the first one. I got mad at the second one because there's
mhm,
clearly a point that there's a goal right there, right on top of the play. It's a bang bang play, and I'm not sure Milic had that really frozen because his
he did
head was
not.
still moving, and I can't blame McGroarty for going full bore into that to try and get to the puck. I heard the Canadian broadcast where they're like, "Well, he's harpooned." I don't think he was harpooned. I think that's
No,
an over exaggeration, and I just felt like that should have been a goal. Would that have made the difference in the game? Probably not, but it was awfully deflating. I mean that's a fact. I still think they fought back to some degree, but some guys didn't have their best games. I mean, Cutter Gauthier had a hard time engaging for the first period and a half of this game. He did better in the second half of the game. He had at least some shots on net, but some shots he literally was just shooting right into Milic's chest, and that was a little disheartening. Look, Cooley and Snuggerud were great early on. They couldn't carry the whole team. That's unfair to think they should, and
no, and that's why I was a little disappointed in Cutter Gauthier's play,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because that the way that Cooley and Snuggerud have been playing, they've been carrying that line.
yes,
And, against a team like Canada, they're going to struggle a little bit. And that's where a guy like Cutter Gauthier should have been able to step up and be that third weapon to make the Canadian defense have to cover more territory. And that's where you can get goals out of it, because of
yeah.
missed coverage.
And he
And
was on the ice for at least a couple goals. He was
yep,
definitely look, halfway into the third period, the US team was spent.
yep,
Completely spent. They were, so for whatever reason, Canada had more juice. We knew they had more talent. Doesn't mean that the most talented team always wins. Augustine was like, on the broadcast, they were acting like he really was like saving the game for him. I think he was average. I think he maybe made a couple of great saves, but he was, he wasn't like Milic was. Let's put it that way. Not even close.
no, Milic had the game of his life, I believe,
Yeah.
out there, and was a huge difference because, USA was getting shots on net. They just
Hmm.
weren't going. So
Right.
I think Milic made a ton of really key
But they
saves
weren't getting
that
traffic.
that's true. That's
Except
true.
for the goals in question, the traffic wasn't really there. The screens weren't really there. Look, actually, the U.S. did what we wanted to do with Bedard, and they held him to a goal, which in this game is actually really good. And look, Luke Hughes needs to reel it in at times. I talked about it on other shows. Sometimes he goes a little bit too far offensively and has trouble then making a defensive play. He made a couple of good defensive plays, but also he was a little reckless at times, and that's the part of Luke Hughes' game that still needs refinement that sometimes people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, I think for me, just the big issue was structure, and that in other games in this tournament, the US team had a lot more structure to their play,
They did.
and once the flashiness of Canada kicked in, like, they lost that structure completely. I think that they were just puck watching a lot, and whatever defensive structure they had that worked in other games went out the window because they just could not keep up with what Canada was doing,
And the bigger
a
Canada
and they
forwards,
lost focus.
yes, and the bigger Canada forwards definitely took advantage of the smaller US defense. Like we talked
Oh, they
about
were
that.
getting knocked down. They were
Yeah,
getting knocked down a lot.
yeah.
So, yeah, it was, heartbreaking for Americans, glorious for Canadians.
Yep.
I definitely think Team Canada deserved it, no
Oh
question
no, they
there.
earned it. They
Yeah,
were, look, in the end, they were gonna win that game anyhow, but that 5-4 game could have happened, but, again, the way the momentum kinda shifted, it did make a difference. It's hard to come back once that on that
yeah.
second one, once that's taken away from you, it is a lot to overcome against a great team like Canada.
Yeah. I do wanna talk about the other
Yes.
semifinal. Czechia wins over Sweden 2-1 in overtime. Sweden, it looked like they were gonna go away with it with, less than a minute to go in regulation. David Jiricek, of all people, has the game tying goal. You and I are gonna talk about this for the rest of
Well, we
eternity,
will
Russ.
because he's a big defenseman who can be physical and can score. And our contention was, listen, this guy can really control a lot more of a game than Cutter Gauthier. It's not a knock on Cutter Gauthier. It just
Right.
shows what a weapon a guy like Juracek can be, and he proved that in that game and in other games too in this tournament. So yeah, I mean, I wrote about Czechia, you know, a week ago saying I think they can medal, even though I didn't pick them. When someone asked me to pick them, I didn't pick them to medal. But after I saw them a few games, I realized they could medal. I wrote about it again this morning. I talked about Yuri Kulich, and I wrote a paragraph about Yuri Kulich because this is a guy that
He's had a great tournament.
he's had a great tournament. There was a lot of talk about him. Maybe he's not going to translate that well into North America. Maybe his defense needs a ton of work. Well, playing in the AHL, doing as well as he did for Rochester, really showed in this tournament. He was a real pro. So Coolidge was great. Yeah, Suhanek, I wrote that I expect him to get drafted now. I think that's going to happen. Uh,
Yep, I think so too.
I can't say he outdueled Lindbaum because they both were great, but
No, yeah, they
but
both
but
were
but
tremendous.
but
They
he
both were
those are
great
the
all
2 best
tournament.
goalies in the tournament. I
Yep,
mean,
absolutely.
there's no question in my mind about that. As good as Milic was in this game, those are the 2 best goalies in the tournament. So I knew it was going to be like a tight game. And yeah, I mean, I give Czechia all the credit. They're going to medal now, and that's first time since '01. So that's great. And I can't say Canada's got an easy game here. They'll be the
They do
favorite,
not.
but it's not going to be an easy game because Czechia has a lot of weapons, especially on
They
defense. That defense runs the team.
They do, and I think one of the great things about that team is they've been able to adjust to their opponent, I think,
Hmm.
better than anybody else in the tournament. That they really have a distinct game plan for each team that they're facing that is obvious in a way that maybe the Slovaks had it too, to some degree, but I think Czechia executed it better
Yeah.
than any other team in
I
the
mean, if I'm a
tournament.
Blue Jackets fan with Svozil and Juracek, I'm happy. I'm happy
Very,
what the
very
future might
pleased.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, and, I do feel so bad for Lindbaum in
Yeah.
net for the Swedes, and it really wasn't his fault because there was an
No,
icing at the very end of regulation that led to the face-off
it was
in
a bad
his
icing.
zone. It was a very, very bad icing, and so they had the face-off in the zone, and then Jiricek does his thing, and,
Bing, bang, boom.
uh
Yeah.
yep, yep. So,
I will say this though, again, in tournament play, and thankfully that game didn't go to a shootout. I specifically tweeted, I hope it's not going to a shootout, hoping to jinx it. So I was happy it didn't go to the shootout. But honestly, it shouldn't be 3-on-3 when you're talking about tournaments and gold medals. It really should not be 3-on-3. It should be 5-on-5 for a certain amount of time. Uh, just 3-on-3 just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it in these tournaments relative to,
Because
because it is
regular
just a
season
regular
NHL
season
game,
and Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
bigger than that, you know?
No, I think you're right, and it's an interesting question whether it should be 4-on-4 or it should be 5-on-5 in, like, especially when you get to the semifinals or the elimination games.
You know, do it
Maybe in
five
the
on
round robin.
five
Yeah, in the round
for
robins, do 3-on-3, but then
right.
go to 5-on-5 for
Yeah.
the elimination
And I get
games.
it. Look, go 5-on-5 for a certain amount of minutes, then strip it to 4-on-4. I'll do anything rather than the shootout. I just think the shootout's a dumb way to decide a medal potentially.
Yes, after we just watched that soccer World Cup.
Yeah. For who? Yeah. I mean that again. Yeah. I can't see winning big things, big tournaments on shootouts. Like it's just I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Well, one of the other players on Sweden, Leo Carlsson, got his reputation maybe kicked up a notch during this tournament, and he's one of the top guys in next year's draft. And so, given he just finished up the bulk of his World Juniors, we thought we would talk about him, and we'll do that next.
Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built with Built Healthy is actually tasty. Perfect for the New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And what's even better is that they're healthy. Only 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam Clubs, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later.
Russ, Leo Carlsson is a forward who can play center or wing. Played for Sweden, like I just said, in this World Juniors. 7 goals, 4 assists in 6 games played. He's 18, but he just turned 18, had
Yep.
a December birthday, so he's on the younger side of his year. And he's already a big guy, 6'3", 194. So he's, NHL size player at this age. And right now he's ranked about 3 to 5 in most lists. So top 5 player. I saw some conversation about him potentially moving up over Fantilli for the 2 slot. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if
wrote
that's
about
going
that
to
this
happen.
morning. It could happen. I'm not gonna throw cold water on that yet because a couple things. So, like we had Craig Button on off the post, and he was saying that really Carlson should have played center in this tournament. This is before the tournament began, simply because he is a center and he's one of their best players. But they didn't do it, so whatever. He's going to get drafted as a center in mind, even though he's playing wing in the SHL because again, the deployment there is not always going to be the same as what might
Right.
happen in the NHL. He is a bigger guy already. Uh, Strength will get even better. His one of his gifts is that he really can maneuver through traffic and use his body and shield the puck and get near the net and has a pro shot. Really good speed, very smart, never panics, uh, makes a lot of good plays, good hockey IQ. Uh, his play in this tournament was really good. His play in the SHL has been great. There definitely will be some debate within teams, I think, about Fantilli and Carlson, and maybe Fantilli wins it, and maybe he doesn't. The debate will certainly just be, let's go over the pluses and minuses here and make sure we've got it right. I think Carlson has at least earned the debatable part of that, but he'll definitely be gone before 5. I really would be surprised if he lasted that long.
Yeah, I noticed, just watching him play, he does have those moves around traffic. He's really good at that, especially in the center of the ice, right?
Yeah,
That he finds a way to maneuver through that a lot of guys wouldn't even try, that they'll stick to
right.
the outside. But my question is, because he already has that larger frame and that's his sort of bread and butter, is he still going to have the same level of adjustment that most guys have who come over from the SHL with the bigger ice and more space to work with, when he has to play the North American game?
It's interesting. I think if you're a defenseman, you say, "Well, it's easier for me because I have less ice to defend," and all of them say that. Uh, Carlson seems to have really good reflexes, so I do think the transition will be a smooth one for him because it is based on the less room on the ice. It's more reflexive, more IQ driven plays, and he's able to do that. He does seem to have an extra gear too when he's moving through traffic that way. So while you might not say he's the fastest or one of the fastest guys in the draft, he's got a game speed, which does matter and can throw off defensemen. And again, the thing that will help him going forward, because he certainly doesn't have his man strength yet, is while he's going to do those moves with players on him, he's probably going to be able to knock off a few of them too.
Right.
And so he's going to be dangerous, but he's going to be dangerous from a lot of different facets of the game. Same as Fantilli. Like, you're going to be really looking at them and just saying, boy, there's a lot of things here to like about both. And, this is where somebody's European scout may point out something and say, listen, I think I favor, so I think there'll be some debate. I'm not ready to put, I haven't put out my list yet, and I'm not ready to say one or the other is a definitive number, the second guy in the draft yet.
Yeah, like for me, who is really into prospects but isn't, a formal scout, I think that it's harder for somebody like Carlson to move up in the ranks because I just don't get to see him play,
Yeah.
right? Unlike the other guys. And I think that this is a situation where the teams are really going to have to depend on their scouts. And
Yes.
I'm going to take professional scout opinions at a much higher like rate or put more weight to the the professional scouts and the European scouts when making that kind of a choice for myself, just because access to games and knowing those leagues better than I do.
Yeah, the one edge I have is because of Instat, I can watch full games and shifts, and I'll be doing all of that. The World Juniors is just a small part of his grade. The
Right.
second half of the season now, he had a good first half. Now let's see after this what his second half looks like. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to be watching intently, not just watching a couple of video highlights.
Right. And I think, we all know the SHL is a really good quality league.
It's the
And
second best league in the world.
yeah,
It really is. The only difference is, I just said this to someone today. It's the second best league in the world, but the AHL is so close because the physicality in the AHL closely mirrors what players will see in the NHL, where the SHL doesn't have that near that level of physicality, but everything else is there.
yeah, agreed. All right. Well, we have a video of Leo Carlson highlights for you as our fun
And they don't
thing
suck.
for they don't. He is very good. And everything about what we just mentioned in terms of him driving play through the middle and dancing around people, is very evident in all of these highlights. So have fun watching them and think about other guys besides Bedard. There's some really good options out there.
There are, and if you're a Flyers fan, you just have to get in that top 11 or the worst 11. If you're at number 12, then then you've got some issues, but I think they'll be in the 11. I don't know
Yeah,
where, somewhere.
I think so too. All right. We will wrap things up today. We will be back tomorrow with a recap of the Yotes game. Then we have got the weekend matchup against the Maple Leafs to preview as well. So a busy weekend ahead. And of course, we have the medals games for World Juniors. We'll talk about that. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send in your questions for the show via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.